Welcome to Ladies of Another View on Beck. You might notice today that one of us is not so much a lady. We have Jared Hendricks with us. He is from District 38. He blew all the way down here. Some people think you say you flew down here. No, he blew down here. Yeah. North Dakota has been having up to 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts right now. I know back in the Bowman area, it's been up to 100 miles an hour. I don't know what it is here, but it's hard to open and close doors. Everything. In fact, he's the only one that's having a great hair day. Everyone else is kind of disheveled a little bit.
It helps when you don't have hair.
Oh, yeah, it does. That does help a little bit. Yeah. But anyway, Jared just so happened, well, he's the District 31 Republican chair up in Minot. And he had an appointment down here, so he is blessing us with his presence, and we appreciate it. I understand that you were out in D.C. on the 6th. Do you want to tell us a little, or not a little bit, a lot about your experience?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so I was there during the whole day, and we had obviously a great event at the south of the White House, south of the Eclipse area, between basically you have the White House and the Washington Monument, so it's kind of that area in between. And there was probably several 100,000 people. It's kind of hard to tell when you're in the crowd how many people it is. I mean, I think it was probably at least 500,000, but I think it could have been as high as 1 million. And we had a great speech from the president. He talked about the same issues that he's been talking about for really the last several months. You know, the concerns over big tech censorship, the concerns over election integrity, the America First policies, those sorts of things. And then he encouraged people to peacefully and patriotically march towards the Capitol, and that is what 99.99% of everybody did. And obviously there was an incident at the Capitol, and we can talk about that too. But
so was it basically just to show your presence around the Capitol? Is that why he asked you to march towards the Capitol, just to say, hey, this is the Capitol, we're here, and we want...
Yeah, I think so. And that is obviously where the actual certification of the Electoral College was occurring that day, of course. And so, you know, it's just a way of showing your support at that time.
Right. Perfect.
Well, and wasn't part of it too, I think there's enough people in this country that said, we want you to know how many of us are concerned like this country's never been concerned before as far as the integrity of our elections.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty unprecedented. There's never been this many anomalies, you know, I think on this wide a scale for an election. And the difficulty, of course, is in sorting through what things are anomalous due to an unprecedented scale, mail-in voting and COVID restrictions, versus what is legitimate fraud. And I think there's a mixture of both, and that's why you get some of these maybe crazier accusations of fraud, and then you get some accusations that are much more legitimate. And so sorting through those, unfortunately, we don't have a very inquisitive press in general in this country. And if they were a little more legitimately journalistic about this, they wouldn't be just picking the most absurd accusations of fraud and focusing on that and actually investigating some of these legitimate questions. So the inevitable result of that kind of de facto censorship is that people are going to get frustrated. They feel like their voice is not being heard, and so let's all rally in D.C. I mean, it's that simple.
And so how did you get there, first of all? Were you on the bus load that was going from Bismarck, or did you fly down? How did you get there?
No, I wasn't on the bus. My situation was a little unique. My parents live in Hampton, Virginia, so I was visiting them over Christmas and holidays. And so I just decided to extend my stay, because now, because of COVID, you can't get penalized for changing your flight. So I figured, well, I'll just stay. And then I drove up there. And then I kind of had an interesting experience because a friend of mine is very involved in the Vietnamese community in Northern Virginia, which is a really large community. There's a place called the Eden Center, which is a Vietnamese cultural center. And so I kind of got recruited to help organize the buses from there. We had about 10 buses of Vietnamese Americans, mostly Vietnamese Americans, and they went to the rally that day. And I think that's really just a testament to how diverse the crowd was. I mean, there are so many people. African Americans, Latinos, a lot of Asian Americans, a lot of Chinese, Vietnamese, and of course the Vietnamese specifically. These are folks, especially the older ones, the grandparents, as I call them. I mean, they literally fled communism. They fled policies, and unfortunately, some people in this country want us to endorse. They fled that, so they are very strong supporters of President Trump, and I just thought that was awesome to be a part of.
What were some of the comments that they may have made, some of the elders?
I think a lot of them are genuinely scared. I don't want to exaggerate, but I think they literally have seen the worst of this kind of communist totalitarianism. And so they fled that. I mean, they literally fled that here, many of them as refugees. And in fact, when Joe Biden was in the Senate, he was one of only 2 U.S. senators who opposed allowing the refugees into the country, which is funny considering how much a lot of Democrats grandstand about refugees today. And here's a legitimate circumstance, and he opposed that. So they particularly don't like Joe Biden because many of them would actually probably be dead if he had had his way.
With a lot of the people that had gone to the rally, the ones that stayed overnight in their hotels were complaining about being locked in. Did you have that experience where you stayed?
I didn't. I stayed in an Airbnb in Northern Virginia, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I don't know if they're referring to, there was a lockdown in D.C. The mayor instituted a curfew at 6 p.m. that day after things got a little wild. So I don't know if that's the same thing or not.
Well, I did see videos of the policemen actually taking large poles and putting them through the door handles so that people couldn't come out, which would have been a fire hazard, which would have been, you know, a completely safety issue.
Thinking of all of the chaos they had already experienced as a force at the Capitol, I cut them a little slack on that because it was like, okay, now let's just say that these people are still riled up. They don't know, you know, it's like they could all be whatever name they want to call them. What if they do start coming out of that motel, and what if it is like other things that have gone on this summer, or even when they had their inauguration, or the whatever it was the last time when they were in, and Rand Paul and his wife got attacked by Antifa and things like that. Right. Maybe they were trying to just avoid that at all costs this time. So I cut them a little slack on that piece, but. Yeah,
I think we should definitely cut some of the law enforcement a little bit, some of the individuals a little bit of slack, because it seemed like there was a lot of confusion and disorganization. It might be fair to say that some of the leadership in law enforcement made some poor decisions. I know when we got to the Capitol, clearly, you know, people had already broken barriers, which we didn't even see barriers. So as far as most of us that got there, we didn't know there were barriers, frankly. I know that sounds crazy because you see the reports, but there was a sea of people. You couldn't see any of this stuff, and they were trampled on the ground. But there was very little law enforcement presence. There was some up on the balcony of the Capitol, and we saw, many of us witnessed, or they were starting to shoot tear gas canisters down into the crowd. I know people got injured from that, and it seemed from my position, I'm not saying this is accurate, but it seemed from my position that it was unprovoked. And so I think it came across to me as if there was just some confusion amongst the law enforcement officials as to what to do. And of course, if that was happening at the same time that people had broken windows and got inside the Capitol, I can understand. They were just reacting and probably there was a lot of confusion. Right. So, and I think that was really the main takeaway, is this was so chaotic. Right. And it's very easy to kind of sit back and pass judgment on this and that, but clearly there was some major things that went wrong in the planning for this.
Okay, so we have just a few seconds left, but we have so much more to talk about. So we're going to be right back after these messages on Beck.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather, like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines.
Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county.
Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Four Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Four Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Four Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Heroes and Icons is changing to Cozy TV on January 18th. Don't worry, you'll still get your favorite Beck News programming without changing the channel. Real people, real news, Beck News.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. We've been talking with Jared Hendricks out of Minot. He was at the Capitol the day of the rallies, and so he's been telling us a little bit about his experience. And so let's just pick up where we left off, Jared. Tell me a little bit about your personal feelings or your experience that day. Did you feel like you were in a group of just celebratory people who, hey, let's, you know, we're pro-Trump, or did you feel like, oh my gosh, I could be killed at any moment? Like, what was going through your head when you're in a massive group of people like that?
Yeah, for me, it was very positive. I didn't feel the sort of anger, the frustration. I mean, there is frustration over the election results and some of the things that have been going on, of course, but I found it, frankly, to be much more positive. I mean, the people there were good-spirited. I felt like there was just this kind of general energy of how do we carry this movement forward? How do we address these issues of election integrity, big tech, America First, as I said, those sorts of things. That's what I took away from it. Obviously, others had their passions inflamed quite a bit. I mean, that's just human nature. I think these things will happen, especially when you're talking about a crowd of hundreds of thousands of people and in a very divisive year. And I think if people are really concerned about what happened, which, you know, people died, you should be concerned. It was bad. We should really maybe look at why people are frustrated. What would drive someone to that kind of level of frustration? Right. And, you know, I shared something on social media after that happened. There was a Martin Luther King quote where he said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said that the riot is the language of the unheard. Yes. And it's similar to, a lot of people used that quote last summer during the BLM and Antifa protests. Mm-hmm. And I think that whether you agree with all the implications of that is not the point. The point is it should make us think, why are people taking the actions that they're taking? But from my experience, it was positive, and I didn't really see angry people.
So do you think this whole movement has kind of like awoken the sleeping giant? Like, do you think, you know, people are finally fed up? I mean, the conservatives are known for law and order and peace. That's how we like to go about our lives. But do you think things are starting to switch up? Like, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease and we haven't squeaked enough?
Yeah, I think so. And in some ways, it's a good thing, and that people can get fired up. More people are engaged. More, like what I've said, that probably Trump's greatest contribution is that he has released a lot of voters from apathy who were not engaged before. He's woken up a lot of people. That's on the positive side. On the negative side, obviously, people can be prone to unrest or even violence. And I think that's why this big tech censorship is so dangerous, because when you take away everybody's nonviolent ways of expressing themselves, well, what do they have left?
Right.
We shouldn't be surprised that these things happen when this is done to people. And again, I'm not, obviously no one's excusing anyone who did those things is responsible for their actions. But I'm just saying that if policymakers are seriously concerned about that, they need to be thinking about the issues and the division that is driving people to this.
And it's sad to me that we live right now in this time where they're still so tuned into hatred of Trump and what he, but I think if we could just get past that, I think it's the hatred of how many of us will be silent no more. How many of us say, we have become such a big government that's running our life, and we're not heard when we try and express ourselves, whether it's our local people or our national people. We're not having a voice. And I think as America, Trump helped wake that up. And I think that's the piece that they just want to fight so much, because you can't keep moving into globalism if you start having individualism become a thing again.
Yeah.
That's kind of my read on it. That's kind of the elephant in the room for me,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of truth to that. And you know, historically, people, well, in this country, we have freedom of speech. It's a cornerstone, the First Amendment. And so one of the things that's very concerning is the way this whole event is being characterized. And I try to separate. You know, we had our rally, we had our march. I separate that from the incident of the Capitol, because that wasn't why we were there. That wasn't why I was there.
Right.
And so we have to separate those things. But unfortunately, the incident of the Capitol is being used as this sort of pretext to argue that people should have less right to freedom peacefully assemble, which is, you can't do that. I mean, that is fundamental to our country.
Correct.
I mean, even if the folks were on the Capitol grounds, there's talk about, well, they shouldn't have been on the Capitol grounds. And I'm not to be flippant, but okay, send them all a $50 fine for trespassing or whatever it is. You know, but there's a big difference between that as an act of civil disobedience and vandalizing or engaging in violence, obviously, especially considering the hypocrisy and how this has been covered. I mean, the media ignored the destruction of American cities for 9 months last year. So it's a very different perspective.
You know, a lot of the folks have, like you said, woken the sleeping giant somewhat, but they are at a place now where they don't know where to channel their energy. They've been rallied. They've been silenced. Now they feel like, you know, with the big tech silencing now that has taken place, the apps that have been removed, the people that have been quieted, they are looking for a different way to rally. And it's a little bit frightening almost to think which direction that may go. The other thing I'm wondering about, with your experience there, do you think that this whole move to say that Trump incited a riot or some kind of insurrection is, in the impeachment process, is just another way of censoring?
Yeah, I think so. It's cancel culture to a massive scale. It's the idea that you cut the head off the snake, because people say, well, you can't censor 74 million Americans. Well, you can't, but you can try to make an example out of the leaders. And so that's what a lot of people with an unfortunate agenda are trying to do to Trump. They're deplatforming him. They're trying to censor him. I mean, it's pretty mind-blowing to me. I mean, he's the duly elected president of the United States, and he's been completely deplatformed. And this should be alarming to everyone across the political scale, whether you agree with him or disagree with him.
There were other countries that came here in support of this rally. I know there was a contingent from Germany and a contingency from France, I believe.
Poland as well.
Poland as well, okay.
But yet the media would lead you to believe that everybody doesn't care for Americans over there and doesn't care for Trump specifically. And so it's kind of funny, because I have friends all over the world too, and it's amazing how many have come forward and said, no, we love Trump. We would love to have Trump back.
Yeah, yeah. I think, you know, maybe we should look at this from the perspective of how it would appear to someone else in another country, looking at what happened, kind of like the way we saw the Hong Kong protesters fighting for their freedom, and here you have hundreds of thousands of people in our capital that are essentially rallying against what might be seen as a corrupt government. So think about how this would look like if you lived in another country. You would think, gosh, the American government's corrupt. This is crazy. And so we need to take this very seriously, because obviously people feel that way. And I think they're correct. I think DC is corrupt. I think Trump is fundamentally right. It's a swamp.
Yeah, if we could just get him to maybe use a little more eloquent language, more people might jump on board. You know, I'm not offended by him. I'm not. But a lot of people have complained about that, if he just wouldn't tweet so much, or if he wouldn't do this or do that. But he is really trying to get his message across.
He's not going to be tweeting much now, I mean, obviously.
But we have 20 seconds left, and here's the deal. Do you think you could stick around for our next segment?
Yeah.
You would. Okay. So we're gonna poor Patty's sitting out to the side here, and we're gonna bring her back in the fourth segment. But we're ladies of another view on Beck, and we'll be right back after these messages with Jared as well.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it, and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. Every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck, or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. Jared has decided to stick around one more segment today, so we are very lucky to have him because he came all the way from Minot. But why don't we...
Sailed from Minot.
Oh, he sailed. That's right. I bet you saved on gas. I don't even know which way the wind's coming from. I just know I can't breathe outside. Right, as we're sitting here, you can hear things blowing off the roof. And I kid you not, you guys, this is amazing. The windstorm that we're in right now, and we have no snow, thank God. So, well, why don't we just kind of clean up a little bit about DC, and then we can move into some local politics. Sure. Anything else you want to share about the DC trip?
Yeah, just in summary, I just think that we need to try to look at this in a different light. You know, the a lot of the coverage is kind of fanning the flames of division, and I think that a lot of it is just, I mean, obviously the president has been unfairly characterized as inciting an insurrection, which is ridiculous. I mean, he literally said to peacefully and patriotically march to the Capitol. I don't know how you can't, more literally be the exact opposite. But I think we need to not allow that to continue to drive division. And I think the president put out a statement, I believe it was yesterday, where he was responding to the potential for additional events around the inauguration. He was just saying, you be peaceful, express yourself, of course. We're the country of law and order, we're the party of law and order and all that, which is really the same thing he's been saying for the entire last year.
Sure.
And,
Correct.
But I think it's good advice. I think we need to keep that in mind.
Sure, and we've had on other shows where we've talked about how the last 5 years there's been Trump supporters all across the nation in rallies, and there's never been an incident. So I know I'm repeating myself. We've said that many times on this show, but I think it just proves that we are the party of law and order. And so, all right, well, why don't we talk a little bit about some local issues? What are some of the hot topics on the Capitol Hill this year?
Yeah, well, so there's a whole range of, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of bubbled to the surface. And so I think that, like on the big tech issue, for example, it's a perfect place to start. There are going to be some bills in North Dakota this session dealing with big tech. One in particular is put in by Representative Tom Kading out of Fargo. And basically his bill, in a nutshell, would allow users in North Dakota of social media companies to potentially hold these companies liable for the censorship if they censor you. And the idea there is that obviously federal law, you've probably heard of Section 230. Right. Section 230, in a nutshell, I'm trying to summarize it quickly, but in a nutshell, it provides some immunity to these companies for because they can moderate content, and that it also, but they can only moderate content pursuant to legal terms. In other words, the terms of agreement, and things that are criminal, like lewd or pornography, things like that, they can obviously censor or moderate. But they can't just openly censor different political speech. Unless Facebook says in their user agreement, well, we do not allow people to express their support of President Trump, and you agree to those terms when you sign up. Of course, they don't say that, but they're censoring people nonetheless. So essentially, his bill would allow users to hold these companies accountable. Because really, if you think about it, they're creating their own kind of speech. By censoring, they're actually arguably creating a narrative of speech, a type of speech, because of the proportional power that they have. So that's one bill that I think will be a very interesting discussion.
And it's funny that you mentioned pornography, because that is a huge industry worldwide, and yet you can find it all over the internet, but yet you can't find a conservative story on the internet. And that's what's so frustrating to us. Even when we research for this show, we'll hear a story and then we'll look for it. We can't find it anymore. And so if you don't, find that story, get your documentation down, we're at a loss.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing too that some of these big tech companies on a national scale, international scale, if they're receiving our tax dollars, the big public-private thing comes into play again. So if they're operating with tax dollars in addition to their own dollars, where do our rights go then in all of that discussion? We're helping pay them to censor our voice.
I've never thought of that, Carmen.
And so where's our rights in all that, I guess? Have you heard any discussions on that?
Yeah,
or?
well, our rights are in the Constitution. That's clear. We can't be restricted in our speech. But with the Facebook, or with some of these companies, like particular Google, there is government funding that's been involved in that. So there is kind of this quasi, almost, dare I say, fascist relationship in a way between the government regulators and these companies, which is very similar to what the Nazis did, where they made agreements with newspapers, with radio stations, with companies. They didn't say that, well, you can't operate, it's just that you have to do some of these certain things. And so that is a very dangerous precedent. And these companies have an enormous amount of power and influence. They have a whole army of attorneys, millions and millions of dollars they spend on lobbying, and they influence both parties. And the sad thing about it is there's a lot of people in the US Senate that actually want these companies to do even more censorship. They want to do more regulation to say that, well, for example, you can't talk about any alternative views on climate science, for example. Like, we are the authorities on this, and so only certain things are going to be restricted. And we've seen this with COVID too, where you can't express certain dissenting viewpoints on COVID because it's considered, you know, quote unquote dangerous or something.
Well, I know down in Florida there are some representatives or senators that have petitioned their own state government to stop all contracts with all of these media companies and the like, and people are trying to get some initiative here in this state as well, I understand.
Yeah, and I don't know a whole lot. I've heard that. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I think these things are just going to inevitably continue. I think there could be some litigation, some antitrust action at some point. You know, and in other cases, some of these companies, I believe it was in Illinois, Facebook had gotten in trouble because they violated state statutes on facial recognition laws. And so, you know, these companies in many cases have broken the law. And so it has to be dealt with.
No sweeping it under the rug.
We hope. How about another hot topic? What else do you see bubbling to the surface?
Election integrity is a big thing. I know there's probably a number of bills. One in particular I know put in by Representative Sebastian Ertelt deals with applying certain standards to how we conduct elections. So basically it would say that you cannot solicit, I'm putting that in quotes, a ballot, meaning you're not going to send people a ballot that's not requested. You're not going to do that anymore. Everything is going to be auditable. No machines will be allowed to be connected to the internet whatsoever, which is one of the big problems. These machines are connected to the internet. In fact, that's kind of what Trump got into a little spat with that Christopher Krebs with the CISPA, Homeland Security, because he said that, well, these machines are not connected to the internet, and Trump said, well, no, that's not true, and so he fired him. And then there was a big spat there. Of course, the media narrative is that Trump was saying that things that are false about claims of election fraud. Well, no, he's saying the machines are on the internet. That's true. But that bill deals with those things. I think that's going to be a very hot topic. There's probably going to be a number of bills on that subject.
And do you see some of the bills this session are going to address some of the power structure as far as the three branches of the state?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm starting to see a little bit and hear a little bit on that.
Yeah, I think it's no doubt the legislature is going to want to rein in the executive branch after, you know, how expansive the power has been in the last year. I mean, we're in this perpetual state of emergency, you know, like at what point does it, you know, where's the logical extreme? I mean, I tell people, like, if we have a particularly bad flu season next year, are we going to shut everything down and wear a mask? I mean, where's the limit to it? Where's the reasonable limit? So we need to rein that in, absolutely.
Right. Let the legislature have a little more say in how and when things can happen and when they can't.
Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
That's what those divisions are all about.
Right.
Isn't it?
Right.
You know, we have about 30 seconds. Jan, do you have a quick question?
Well, I was along those same lines. You know, it's how do we rein in the things that we think are detrimental to us as citizenry? How do we get involved?
15-second recap, if you will.
Yeah, well, I guess 15 seconds, I would just tell everybody listening that understand that we are kind of spoiled in North Dakota. You have very easy access to your legislators, very small districts. So, you know, even in COVID with restrictions and wearing masks and these things, you can still go into the Capitol and talk to your legislators. You can reach out to them through phone and email. So take advantage of that. You're lucky.
Perfect.
Right.
Perfect.
Great advice.
Well, thanks again for coming to join us, Jared. And we would like to have you back sometime.
Yeah, it was great.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
We'll be right back after these messages on Ladies of Another View on Back.
Howdy folks, it's the County Line Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at a salad bar, sink your teeth into our famous County Line burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon rattling pie with a cum roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the County Line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering is the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Back. We have a full panel back. Patty had to sit out while Jared was our guest. And he had a medical appointment.
My feet for me.
Yeah, he had a medical appointment, so we had to take him on the first segments. And I'm so glad he stayed for an extra segment. It worked out really well.
Yeah,
great and I didn't have the time to introduce you. Of course, we have Jan and Carmen as well. You know, we always do that swapping. We want everyone to get to know all of our co-hosts. Anyway, this part, we're going to jump right ahead into the impeachment. I want you to take a look at this little clip from last night.
Goes to the balance beam. This is, of course, Paul Hunt.
No,
not quite. Of course, they kind of look like
Wrong
that.
clip. That's right. We're going to save that because
His exact words were, quote, "I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard," unquote. That's impeachable? That's called freedom of speech. Now, he also threatened to oppose candidates in future elections. And by the way, that was directed at Republicans like me who'd resolved to uphold the constitutional process and protect the Electoral College. Well, so what? That's called politics. If we impeached every politician who gave a fiery speech to a crowd of partisans, this Capitol would be deserted. That's what the president did. That is all he did. He specifically told the crowd to protest peacefully and patriotically. Suppressing free speech is not the answer. Holding rioters accountable for their actions is the answer. And we are. And if we'd prosecuted BLM and Antifa rioters across the country with the same determination these last 6 months, this incident may not have happened at all. Now, short of declaring war, the power of impeachment is the most solemn and consequential act that Congress can take. To use it in this manner, in the heat of the moment, with no hearings, no due process, many members phoning in their votes after a hastily called debate, exactly 1 week before a new president is to take office, trivializes this power to the point of caricature. Benjamin Franklin warned us that passion governs, and she never governs wisely. In our passions this week, we've set some dangerous new precedents that will haunt us for years to come. Well, the moment any member of this body gives an impassioned speech and the lunatic fringe of their movement takes license from it, be prepared to answer to this new precedent that we established today. I cannot think of a more petty, vindictive, and gratuitous act than to impeach an already defeated president a week before he is to leave office. President-elect Biden's promise to heal the nation becomes a hollow mockery in the harsh reality of this unconstitutional act. God help our country.
Wow.
Indeed.
So he ended with God help our country, and I couldn't say it better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it does make a mockery of the whole America United, and Joe Biden's trying to stay above the fray. That was another headline I saw today, and it's like, you're supposed to be leading your party right now, and so where is your voice to bring your party together, number one, and then try and bring the rest of the people of this country together with that party to join as one, as Americans, to get something done to make us a better country? Where's that voice? He's supposed to be leading that now.
It seems like they're making something that is an impeachable event be extremely frivolous. I know there is already a representative, I'm sorry I don't know which state she's from, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she's already talking about introducing impeachment for Kamala Harris for inciting violence last summer, and for Joe Biden for being criminally indicted in the Ukraine.
That's fantastic news.
I don't know how far it's going to go,
well,
but
it should
she's
go.
already soliciting
and she's
support.
Brand new. She's brand
a new
new
one.
in the swamp.
Absolutely.
Yes.
She's still untainted.
Thanks for bringing that. I didn't know that. I hadn't heard that.
Well, I got
what goes around comes around, and this
to help support it.
Those are serious criminal offenses.
Yep.
Big time.
You know, I'm so glad you played that, Mary, that he just kept hitting the nail on the head over and over again. And I thought, what kind of people do we have in office that they can get away with this kind of juvenile, vindictive behavior? It is so unprofessional. And yeah, I mean, everything I read about Trump, yeah, he's saying like fight, and he cared about the election and believed it was stolen from him. But he continually said to be peaceful.
But you know, when you say the word fight, what came to mind right now is when you go to a basketball game, fight, fight, fight. It doesn't mean that everyone in the stand gets up and dukes it out with the players.
Well, that's
hockey,
point.
Mary. That's hockey.
Oh, hockey. Well,
that was
okay,
my
except
point.
hockey.
Yes, that was my point. These are just normal terms. Yep. You know, that like get fired up and stuff. Nobody planned on. He wasn't calling for a riot because he kept telling them to walk peacefully, to remain peaceful. He's always been the law and order president. So I'm so glad you played that, Mary. He said it perfectly.
He did.
It was hard to watch it though, because as soon as you'd have an impassioned speech like that was very positive and very truthful, then you'd have somebody like Omar from Minnesota get up and say everything just the opposite and tell everybody to not pay attention to the man behind the curtain, but
and what ultimately their entire goal is, he's going to lose his pension, he will lose his security, and he will lose
the ability to run.
Well, insurance. So those are the three major monetarily things, but he doesn't need any of that. But they don't want him to run for office again.
So what are they so afraid of?
Right.
I mean, it just begs the question.
It really does. If you know that you've won an election fair and square, what's your point of even doing this? Unless it's out of motives that maybe aren't meant to be used in impeachment cases. I really question that. It's like, what are you scared of? What are you running from? What are you... It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't.
All I know is I don't want to hear any talk of unity. They don't care about unity. That anybody who voted to impeach him, that's not their concern at all. It's vindictiveness, nastiness. Trump has a week left in office.
And you know, when they talk about unity too, I was just reading, or I saw today, Bloomberg is doing some things now on how wonderful China is already and how they beat Trump in his own game. And they're already starting the narrative for this new, especially with the charges that are out there based on the laptops for the billions of dollars that have circulated from China into Biden territory. And they're already building the case that China is the good place and we can't afford to not have China doing what they've always done. And I watched that and I was just like, I was amazed that we're already right back there. Nothing that has been done or said in 4 years is making a difference. We're still going to go down that road with China. And that's all of our intellectual property theft. That's all of our stuff. All of the restrictions that President Trump put on the trading of, purchasing stock in Chinese companies that are affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party. That all becomes part of the narrative again that, no, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Remember Joe Biden saying, China's not a threat to America? It's like, really? Do your homework. Figure it out. It's a lot of it's buried now, so you can't really do your homework, but
I think it will come out. I really do. I just think that there's too much information that has already been shared that we're going to find out more about Hunter Biden. And I guess I'm all of a sudden pretty excited because if that's true about impeachment starting already, it's like
bring it on.
Bring it on is right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's like finally it's like maybe we can do something. Maybe something can be done. I hadn't heard that yet, so I am so glad you brought that up.
Need to support these
You would have to have a lot of the Democrats support it then, but you'd have to have Nancy Pelosi be willing to bring it to the floor, right? Isn't that how it works?
Couldn't tell you.
If that's the case, then we may have a little work to do.
Well, I guess that gives us some homework to do, doesn't it?
Well worth it.
Right.
Okay, well, we appreciate you guys tuning in with us today. We're going to take a short break and come back with our lighter side, but I'm lighter already. I feel pretty good, actually. So we'll be right back after these messages on Ladies of Another View on Beck.
Howdy, folks. It's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the gang. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county.
Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef in all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Coulter Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to Ladies of Another View on Beck. I am so excited for this segment because this is a video that I had seen years ago, and it keeps resurfacing on my memories on Facebook. Anyway, it is a gymnastic, it's a gentleman, his name is Paul Hunt, and I want to say, I can't remember if he's from Montana, but he's from a kind of a rustic state. Anyway, they always do these skits when they get together for these great big competitions. Check this out.
Goes to the balance beam. This is, of course, Paul Hunt, whose gymnastic routines. How beautiful.
Here we go.
With trepidation, he climbed aboard the balance beam. And his tutu has a smile for everybody.
He used to have one that said "Mom" on it. When he kicked up to a handstand, it said "Wow."
Oh! Oh! Don't hurt yourself, Paula.
You know, it's a comedy routine, but his gymnastics is really pretty good here.
It's tremendous when you think of how hard he has to work to look bad. It's amazing, and he's magnificent.
That's a very good handstand. A little stuck there, though. Well, even the Soviets really like this. Now watch this. This is a serious gymnastics skill. And he made it.
And he bows.
Made famous by Olga Korbut. Now look at, he stubbed his toe, though, so he's got to be a little careful when he wants. You got to put that foot there in the beam to stand up. Oh, he's a little bit too far off to the side, though. Can't quite get it down.
Beautiful.
Now, flexibility is a very, very important part of gymnastics, and so Paul wants to display that to everyone now.
I tell you, he's worked that beam from one end to the other, Peter. Beautiful. Paul Hunt. What a magnificent.
So isn't that just, I just absolutely, every time I see it, I just laugh because I've been to those competitions, I've seen them, you know what I'm saying? And they're so serious, don't touch this, don't do that. One wiggle and they will dock points from you.
Yes.
And he just makes light of the whole thing. I guess he's from Illinois and lives in Utah, so I wanted to make that correction. His name is Paul Hunt. But it's just kind of how he can take what they do with such beauty and grace and just turn it into, hey, this is what I got.
Right, right. Well, he's pretty talented, though.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, he's trying to make it all funny and a comedy routine, but
he is a gymnast. He is a gymnast.
But he had mad skills, man.
Right. Right.
Right down to his ponytails.
I like the little yarn. Yeah.
Well, one time, the last time he did a skit, he had on his undies, it said, wow. And then when he went upside down, it said mom.
Yeah, sure.
So it's just so cute, but just to come up with these things.
Right.
You know,
you got to wonder how much fun it is even to put it together, you know, but it takes real skill. It's almost like those, you know, when you see acrobats in the circus and stuff, and they're on the high wire and they make it look so easy and fun, and they do silly things, and it's like, oh, that's really dangerous, but they make it look so easy, and it makes you laugh, you know. But I would have a lot of pulled muscles if I tried doing any of that.
Can't even imagine
Yeah,
trying to do the
all that
splits
strength.
now.
You have to have a lot of muscles. Yeah.
Yeah, you could see his legs are very strengthened.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we only have a couple minutes left, and before we go with our final thoughts, or maybe this could be our final thoughts, there's some bills going on up at the state capitol regarding the long-term care. Now, you guys remember when Lori was here our very first week and did a fantastic interview with these elderly people in the nursing homes, very lonely and dying alone, many of them. So they want you to go ahead, if you have some testimony, grab your testimony, write it up, and we have some information to put up on the screen as to where to send it to. But it needs to go to Senator, and it's Kristen Roars, and it's kroars@nd.gov. So if there's anything, any concerns that you have about your elderly friends, family, relatives, get your testimony in. We have got to make changes, so if these pandemics keep springing up on us, which they probably will. This is one of the bills that she's actually working on right now. It's to create and enact a chapter of the North Dakota Century Code relating to the access of long-term care facilities in case of a declaration of disaster or emergency, and to declare an emergency. I think that's something, this is something that was new to everybody this year.
Yes.
Very devastating to many families that they can't see their loved ones, but if good people are silent, nothing gets done. So you have to go ahead and write to your legislators, but write to Kristen specifically of any issues that you have. Ladies, we got about a minute. What do you think?
I think you get involved by learning who your representatives are, or call one up, take them out to coffee, find out what their responsibilities are and how you can help.
Right. And you can also go online and
nd.gov.
Yep,
look at the bills.
Or something with legislative, but just
legislative bill tracking system.
Oh, there you go. See, Google legislative bill tracking system. And
took the words right out of my mouth there, Carmen. Yep. So that she said what I.
And and you can go into that site and you can find out who your representatives are there. You can find your senators, and you can find out what bills are before the Senate and the House, and it gives you so much information. It's a great resource to go through.
All right. Oh, we got so much information, but thank you for joining us, ladies of Another View on Beck.